humans created the AI, right? And then we created it through that thought process that you're talking about. So when you start using AI too much, it kind of takes that exact process away from you, which kind of leads to the next point, which is something you also talk about. It's called cognitive offloading, right? So can you go a bit deeper on that, and how do people like really work on not giving into that temptation?
All right.
Yeah.
That's great. This is my favorite thing to discuss. And I've got
Okay.
some, yeah. So to explain it, I think I can explain it through a series of analogies. Okay.
Okay.
I'll give you an appropriate example of cognitive offloading or just offloading in general, and then how this could apply to your own work. Okay. So you have a big, let's say you have a big lawn, you have a big house, and it takes you about an hour to mow your lawn, right? Now, would you consider the process of mowing your lawn to be difficult at all, right? It's pretty mechanical. It's pretty objective, right? You go back and forth in straight lines,
Yeah.
takes you about an hour, and then your mow's lawn or your lawn is mowed, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I were to hire someone to do that task for me, the lawn still gets mowed. And I just saved an hour of my time, correct? So
Yeah.
if I hire someone to mow my lawn, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to go back and forth in rows. They're going to mow my lawn. And meanwhile, I'll have an hour to do something else. And while this might not be a cognitive offload, I'm trying to illustrate that this is what offloading looks like. I've just given a task that would have taken me a lot of time, but it's really not a meaningful task, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a task that's bringing any value. It just was going to take a lot of my time, and it's not complicated. It's a mechanical task. I'm giving
Mm-hmm.
it to someone else to do and freeing up an hour of my time to do something else. So the great way in our work to use our cognitively offload is through a lot of, I mean, if you're in a corporate job or you're at a school, right? You get a lot of administrative tasks that are maybe redundant, repetitive, um, and AI is really good at doing these tasks for you, with a caveat: if you provide samples of your own work prior, right? If you just ask it to whip it
Mm.
up out of nothing, it's
You can't
actually,
do it.
it can't do it. It can do it, but what I've observed is like people that don't know how to use AI have it just kind of create these repetitive or redundant things from scratch. And then they end up spending an hour or two editing and modifying what AI did so it actually meets what they want. So if you're a teacher, for example, and your school requires you to have to make a lesson plan for every lesson, right? If you were just to say, "Hey, I need a lesson on this learning standard," it might not actually be what you would use at that school, right? There might be a specific context that it's missing. So you just end up sitting there typing and editing what AI wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually not saving you any time. So the better way to do it would be to upload 5 to 10 examples of lesson plans that you've already created. So it has the model of what you're looking for. And then it can repeat that task for you over and over and over again. So I'd say that's a
Mm-hmm.
great way of cognitively offloading at your work. You can apply that to all sorts of jobs. Okay. The other way that you could cognitively offload, like beneficially, is generally through anything I would call like objective truths. Okay. This means like, especially regarding data. And this can be very complex data, right? This could even be something as complex as genetic sequencing, right? Because genetic sequencing is really, it's objective, it's true, or looking at the way molecules are put together. These aren't interpretations, they're not subjective in nature. And if an AI learns how to do it, it can repeat that task and save you, right, a scientist, a lot of time having to do it through a different program or do it manually. And then you have the opportunity to just review it afterwards and be like, oh, okay, I'm looking over this sequence. It looks really good. I just saved myself a few days of work, right? You have a set of data that might take you 8 hours to sift through. AI is really good at analyzing that data for you because data is objective, right? So if you're just looking for it to compile numbers together, right, it can do that much quicker than a human being could ever do. You're
Mm-hmm.
not losing anything by having AI do those tasks for you. You're actually just saving yourself a considerable amount of time, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's where I think it's really bad, especially for kids. Okay, I'll give you another analogy. Um, and I came up with this because I was watching my daughter do it the other day. She's digging in the
Okay.
sand, and I was thinking back to, well, kids love digging holes in the sand, and my brothers and I, we used to sit at the beach, and we would spend an hour or two digging the biggest hole we could manually with shovels, right? Long, long process. A lot of effort goes into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is high tide comes in, water fills up the hole, it starts breaking down all the walls, and you feel terrible. Like you're like, oh, all of that effort I put in is just
Yeah.
being washed away. Now consider I go to the beach with my brothers and our idea is let's build a huge hole. And then my brother says, oh, I have this cool machine that's going to just dig it for us in 10 minutes. Right? Oh, okay, let's have this machine dig the hole. Right? So the machine digs the hole for us, takes us out of the process entirely.
Uh-huh.
The hole still gets dug. Then high tide comes in, washes it away. What do you think our reaction is to losing that hole?
You'd be like, just yeah, just do it again. Just you know what I
Like,
mean? It's yeah,
it's not
it's not
that
gonna
big of a
phase you.
deal.
It's not gonna phase you. Yeah.
We put no investment into it. So how does this apply to at least learning in general? And this is, I think, this is the danger of cognitive offloading
I I
to
see
a
where you're going.
task
Yeah.
like this.
Mm-hmm.
We just talked about that ChatGPT example with writing.
Yeah.
If you go right to creation with AI for your writing means nothing. You haven't learned anything. You haven't reflected internally on your own beliefs or internalized any knowledge, right? Um, so by doing something like that, and obviously it's tempting, right? Students are going to be like, "Oh, I can just write this paper with AI. Might as well just do it."
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we as human beings, our inclination is to cognitively offload as much as we can,
Yeah.
right?
That's right. That's right. Yep.
Um, art is a really good example, right? AI is really good at creating art in terms of the technicality of it, right? AI can replicate the technical aspects of art. But if you think about it, the value of art isn't really in the product. It's in the artist, it's in their historical, like when they came up with the idea, did they revolutionize or create a new type of art? What's the story behind it? Was Is their art a reflection of their own beliefs or trauma? What's the story behind the artist and why they chose to represent things this way, right? A lot of artists have technical mastery and they choose not to use it when they represent art. So by having AI develop art for you, right, the art itself is meaningless and you lose a lot of value
Mm-hmm.
from it. So that's kind of how I would think about healthy and unhealthy cognitive offloading. Does that You want any
Okay.
clarity on that?
Yeah. No. No. It's fine. Yeah. So it seems like the main problem is that like you lose that ability to self-reflect, right? And then right, because if you've never felt any pain, from like losing the stuff that you've worked hard to build, then it's not gonna really motivate you to try and figure out, okay, how can I improve this in a way that will, make sure that this situation doesn't happen again, right? But
Yeah.
like, but like, what if someone were to say, oh, like I'll make the AI do it, and then like I'll sit there and watch the result, and then if it doesn't work out, then I'll figure out, oh, okay, like I'll see, what went wrong, and then based on that analysis, I can like reprogram the AI to do it in a new way.
Okay. So
So like,
you're
what happens there?
okay. So you're thinking of this as a when I have AI do something and then I'm looking at it, right? So
Yeah.
what you're saying here is actually something different because
Okay.
you're analyzing AI's output through your own lens and you're determining its relevance to whatever situation you have it be. And this actually is a really good skill that we should start teaching students in school, which
Hmm.
is to analyze AI output and look for biases, look for flaws, look for hallucinations, look for source validity. If we're doing this, we're actually learning how the system works, and that helps us develop how to use it better. So you can be really, really good at using AI, and that will only happen if you really understand how it works and you can mitigate the negative effects of it. The reason this is difficult, and especially because I'm a teacher, so I'm looking at through the lens of
Yeah.
students, is this is something that I think a lot of adults can do, right? Because their brains are developed. And when an adult is using AI, they jump to this, well, why can't I just use it to, why can't I create something and then kind of go over it and analyze it from my own perspective and kind of break down where it's wrong and clarify my points and deepen my thinking? It's because we've already learned the skills of critical thinking. If you
Right.
haven't learned these skills and you start cognitively offloading before your brain's developed, your brain will atrophy, right? And you won't develop the muscles needed to adapt to situations in the future. So, if you're thinking about this in terms of, well, how could a school approach AI? You want to train kids to, at certain points, you might want to actually bring AI output into the classroom. And instead of having kids use it to generate things, actually have students break down where it's incorrect. And
Hmm.
this is actually one of the problems with AI is it does tend to do something called hallucinate. Have you heard this term before?
I haven't, well, not in the term of like AI, but I know what you're talking about. Like it'll give you a random answer, like every now and then if you ask it a question. I guess it just creates something that doesn't really make any
It'll
sense.
also create, it'll completely fabricate sources as well. It'll
Hmm.
completely fabricate
Yeah.
journals because AI's primary function is not accuracy, it's engagement.
Yeah.
Okay. So AI will, by default, try to please the user, and that includes making things up that, and it does it really confidently, right? It's like speaking to someone really confident. It makes it up, and you're like, okay, I got it, right? Oh, that makes perfect sense. Well, of course it makes perfect sense. It's what you asked for,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that is something that we as teachers or professors in school really need to consider how we're using these tools in the classroom to ensure that students understand deeply how these things work. And then, of course, you can use them to your advantage.